What's up, guys? Welcome to the James Boudreau podcast, where I sit down with people from all walks of life to talk about their stories, experiences, and ideas. This podcast is brought to you by Watson Motors, the official studio sponsor. If you're in need of a Jeep, Ram, or Dodge, or whatever, these guys have you covered with great deals and even better service. So hit them up in Manistee, Benzie, or Ludington, or check them out online at watsonmotors.com. Listen, support the people that support the show. Now let's get into it. Gotta unplug my refrigerator. You don't want that background noise, dog. That would have been the whole show. Oh, sorry, descriptive words? Go ahead.
AI it can be verbose, and use really descriptive words is a good way to, one of my friends is a professor, and he said that students are using AI to do their papers now.
Yeah.
But he will spot it and ask them, and he said that everybody he's asked so far has come clean. And he gives them a chance to redo it in their own words.
Yeah. I mean, that's mighty nice of them.
Yeah.
Instead of just dropping an F on them.
Could kick them out.
Yeah, for sure. Because technically it's, I mean, would that be considered plagiarism?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. It's a crazy thing. I mean, I think as a tool, it can, like, again, right now it's just a search engine, really. Mm-hmm. And it does help.
It's a really advanced search engine.
Yeah.
It's still just drawing from stuff that humans inputted.
Some of it's pretty cool. Like if you said, hey, I need a spreadsheet for this, whatever, you get that. But I try to stay away from it as much as possible because I think it's just another tracking system. The more you put into this thing, the more it knows and the more advertising comes your way.
Yeah.
Just some of the things that I ruminate about.
Yeah. Well, I feel I don't use it for art like my music because I feel like art is something that's fundamentally human. And I don't know if I want my art to come from my mind. And I don't use it like AI to create my melodies. I'm never going to do that.
I know that you're really into music.
Yeah.
My buddy Mike that's been on the podcast a couple of times, he's really into music and especially old school rap and stuff like that. And we actually had a conversation. I wish we had it on camera, but you and I can have it because I think that you'll have some insight to this too. The AI music, have you heard any of this shit?
Yeah.
Like the remake of some of the old school R&B and rap and stuff.
Tupac rapping. And,
fuck. If you didn't know, this episode is brought to you by Brandon Ball, broker owner of Dwelling Realty, Keller Williams, Northern Michigan. Are you looking to sell your home? Then look no further. When you list your home with Brandon Ball, you'll get a trusted advisor who will guide you through the entire selling process. With extensive knowledge of the local market, he'll help price your home competitively to attract the right buyers. And with proven marketed strategies, your home will be seen by the most qualified of buyers. With 17 years in the business, you'll have someone experienced who's on your side. Contact Brandon today to get started selling your home. 231-690-4981. That's 231-690-4981. Or Brandon at dwellingrealty.com. This episode is brought to you by Trailhead Bike Shop. Trailhead Bike Shop is an old school independent bike shop owned and operated by two supremely rad humans, Kyle and Lynette Nichols. They're a full-service shop offering quality bicycles while providing quality service at a fair price. They strive to provide great customer service and build relationships within the community. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. No matter what kind of cycling you're doing, be it on the road or getting after it on gravel, Trailhead Bike Shop is the shop you need to check out. You can find them at 216 West Ludington Avenue, Ludington, Michigan. You can get a hold of them at 231-845-0545 or trailheadbikeshop.com. Right?
It can fool you.
Yeah. That's wild. So when you think about it's being a human thing, a human expression, but
you can be sued for that too. Whoever posts that, if the artist or whoever owns the rights to that artist, if the artist is dead, can sue whoever publishes that. So that's still bound by licensing contracts. You can't just create, a Jimi Hendrix song with Jimi Hendrix singing and playing guitar and think you're going to make money off it.
Right. But it's they take my daughter sent me the Eminem song. I don't know if you've heard, which one is it? Shady's Back.
Okay.
And it was made in like a 1950s jazz thing. So it wasn't his voice.
Right.
But it was, this generated. It was a banger, dude.
I've
that's
heard
pretty
those.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the legality in that? You're just repurposing a song.
They're probably walking a fine line.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the social media stuff is walking a fine line. And like for me, like I know right away if I can use a song or not in any of the content that I'm putting out. Like if you mess with TikTok. Here's the weird thing about it. We're going down a weird path, not even on topic of what I want to talk about today. But if say you create something with music on an app like Instagram, right, and you download that, and you've placed it on Instagram, you've placed it on Facebook. As soon as you take that download that you created and put it on something like TikTok will flag it and be like, hey, you can't use this music. But if I take the same download that I had, put it on into TikTok before I post, edit out that song, and then add the exact same song from TikTok, it works.
Right. That's licensing. TikTok, and that's the same reason you can upload to YouTube with music, and it'll say...
banned in Bulgaria or whatever.
Yeah, but it will still allow you to use it, but it's not going to let you make money off of it.
Yeah.
Because YouTube is licensed to use that. They own the license, but they're going to pay the artists for that, not you.
One cool thing that Meta's doing now is for music, if it's licensed, because you can choose between licensed and unlicensed music. If it's licensed, they revenue share it now. So they share the revenue with the artist.
Okay.
They share the revenue with the creator.
I like that.
So, but I don't know what the percentage is. Is it like 1% of the creator?
Yeah, you get 99? A fourth of a penny.
Yeah, but music's better when it's real, not the like fake shit. Like, have you ever noticed like it the unlicensed stuff is like, it's not fake. It's just not known. It's just somebody's
background
music that they put
elevator
on.
music.
Yeah. It's like, well, that's boring. I want like Many Men in the background.
Yeah, I want a song I know.
Yeah. All right, Nate Markham, let's hop in.
All right.
I got a bunch of shit I wanted to talk to you about, bring up. A lot of it is kind of more like the message I sent you. This is what I want to talk about. A lot of kind of political stuff, but it's more like what's going on today. But I wanted to pick your brain a little bit on the philosophy side of these things.
Great.
So I guess my first question is, because I want to be transparent, are you a philosopher, or do you just study philosophy?
I call myself a philosopher. I had a professor at U of M who said that when I was in that class, we were junior philosophers. But I've been studying philosophy for a long time, and I philosophize and I write and, make videos, and I call myself a philosopher, yeah.
So how do you take that philosophy, the idea of being a philosopher, into how you see politics today?
Well, I look at politics through the lens of philosophy, which not everybody does. And people look at politics and break it down by issue and what issues are most important to them. Sometimes you look at it through the lens of your identity. Sometimes you look at it through the lens of maybe your religion. My starting point is philosophy, and really the root of my political philosophy is in ethics, because ethics kind of deals with the way you treat other people, also how you treat yourself, but it's rooted in the way you're going to operate your life and treat other people, which coincides with politics, because politics, the definition of politics is, the polity, like how you're dealing with other people. That's when people come together. You have politics because you have to decide, how am I going to interact with people? So ethics and politics are all intertwined, and ethics is a branch of philosophy. So that's really where it begins for me.
Well, what about Stoicism?
Yeah, I knew you wanted to talk about Stoicism.
Yeah.
Stoicism's great, but it's not all It's not all there is. There's more to the story than just Stoicism. A lot of times in philosophy, you're going to find dualisms, especially if you take a class in philosophy. They're going to say, all right, on this side, there's this idea. On this side, there's this idea. And there'll be all different kinds of stuff throughout thousands of years that people have gone back and forth writing volumes of work. So Stoicism has hedonism on the other side. And hedonism from the ancient Greeks is not like the hedonism you think. Like hedonism, you think of a hedonistic, getting drunk and partying and just all about pleasure. If you look at somebody like Epicurus, which we don't need to get caught up in the names of philosophers. For me, it's more about the ideas.
Well, see, I like this. Where you're going, all right, I don't study philosophy.
Yeah.
All right, but I have read Meditations. I keep it on the side of my
Marcus
table.
Aurelius.
Marcus Aurelius, Stoic.
Great book.
And I've read it. I couldn't tell you how many times.
Yeah.
It's an easy read. It's right next to my bedside.
It's a thin book. It's not a huge one.
And I mean, for me, when I read it, I'm like, yeah, this kind of makes sense. You know, you're just trying to control what you control, be disciplined, be mindful, you know, be ethical.
Yeah.
It sounds great.
Self-sacrifice to advance your life and to make yourself better. But then you have hedonism that says that maybe the meaning of life is more about happiness and being happy. And maybe it's not all about self-sacrifice. And there are different people who put this different ways. Someone like Epicurus, he talks about long-term happiness. And you don't want to get caught up in thinking, oh, well, if it's all about the pursuit of pleasure, well, then why don't I just sit around and drink and party every day?
Yeah, right.
That doesn't work out long-term. What happens when you drink too much? You're going to be hungover the next day. That's causing you pain. That's not going to make you happy. What happens when you party too much? Your life goes down the tubes. It's not going to make you happy long term. Aristotle's another good one. He kind of combines Stoicism and hedonism into something he calls eudaimonia. And he talks about happiness being relative. Happiness is different for everybody. You know, it's always different for everybody. And again, it's long-term happiness, developing virtue. To him, it's kind of like eudaimonia is the point to life for Aristotle. And it's a big part of it is developing virtue, but also leading toward happiness. Not necessarily pleasure, but so you're content. And it can be simple pleasures, just real simple things. You know, so it's kind of a contrast to Stoicism, which Stoicism's always talking about self-denial, sacrifice. Sometimes you get into pessimism where you're looking at life in kind of a pessimistic way, and hedonism or eudaimonia may be more optimistic.
You know, I'm a caveman, but when I read Marcus Aurelius, I think the pessimism and, you know, what you alluded to, it's kind of more the extreme, in my opinion. I think that it's, when I read it, I'm like, yes, if, you know, I should not be bothered by people that don't know me. I should not be bothered by what people think of me, because we are all just going to be gone at some point anyways. I shouldn't be bothered by, you know, things that I can't control.
Yeah.
Right? Control what I control. I shouldn't worry about the things that I can't control.
Yeah.
It seems to me, this is the philosophy versus Stoicism thing. It seems to me like that's, if you're going to pick anything, I don't think it's bad to pick one or the other in terms of philosophy versus Stoicism. Do you agree or disagree?
I'm not sure of your dichotomy between philosophy and Stoicism, because Stoicism is a type of philosophy. The dichotomy or dualism is Stoicism and hedonism. You need to pair those two together. And then they're kind of joined in Aristotle's eudaimonia and his concept of virtue. And that I think he takes, and hedonism has a lot of elements of Stoicism, and it's kind of born out of Stoicism. And a conversation back and forth between the two.
What is hedonism. I heard of being a hedonist and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Explain that
So,
for me and for the other people that are listening going, what are you
yeah,
talking
like
about?
in philosophy especially, it comes from the ancient Greeks, like Epicurus. Basically that the meaning of life is happiness. And you can't say that you're pursuing pleasures. Like even when...
Oh, that's when somebody says you're being a hedonistic, when you're just constantly chasing the
but like
the dopamine.
Right. But like I said, in ancient philosophy, they're not talking about just pure pleasures where you're partying all the time. It's like long-term pleasure, long-term happiness. Make sure you're content with your life, like more of a at peace with yourself and living Aristotle would say the good life. Living the good life. So you're not being irresponsible here. We're not talking about being crazy. Pursuit of pleasure, like a responsible pursuit of pleasure and happiness. Let's focus on the happiness part. And that even when you're engaging in self-sacrifice, in some way you're looking for some further happiness. That you might say, oh, well, I'm doing the hard work. I'm using self-sacrifice. But somewhere down the line, you're searching for happiness through self-sacrifice. So those two ideas are all intertwined.
Gotcha. I should start reading more philosophy.
Yeah. Try Epicurus. It'll be a good balance to Aurelius.
Yeah, because I'm always in search of a little bit more peace.
Yeah. You'll like Epicurus.
I won't. Is it an easy read like Marcus Aurelius? Probably not.
No, it's different.
It's different, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Do you take a philosophical approach when it comes to politics?
Definitely. Political philosophy. I mean, that's how we, like I said, ethics is the root of it. And for me, the root and the jumping off point, a guy named Immanuel Kant. He had something called the categorical imperative. And you'll find in philosophy these things that we call thought experiments. Philosophy is, I define philosophy. Some people might not even know what philosophy is. A lot of people I talk to, what is philosophy? It's just about the things that you can only think about. Ideas. So it's something that I can't show you. Philosophy, concepts like justice, truth, happiness. Those are things you can only think about. That's philosophy. If you can just think about it, can't produce it to show it physically, that's philosophy. So we use thought experiments, stuff you just think about. Immanuel Kant, he thought a few interesting things that every action, and this is impossible to live up to, it's just something you think about and kind of gauge your behavior, and gauge how you live your life. Every action that you do could be universal law. So like, just think about that. Everything that I do, could everybody else do this same thing anywhere in the world and have a good result? Would it be okay if I steal from this person? What if everybody was stealing from this person? How would that work out? Probably not too good.
Yeah.
So don't do that. Just a way to think about things. And another interesting thing that really plays into, it was highly influential to the development of early democratic thought. It was his way of and viewing all people as equal. That you treat people as an end in themselves, not as a means to an end. So you're not using people as a tool for yourself to gain something for yourself. This person is an end in themselves. They're a person, they're a human being, and you respect them because they're human, they're a person, and you have equal respect for them as you do anybody else. And that, go ahead.
Repeat that. You use a person instead of...
You treat people as an end in themselves, not a means to an end.
Meaning?
Don't use people for your own devices.
Gotcha.
Respect them as an entity in themselves.
Okay.
Even if they're different from you. even different beliefs or whatever, that's another human being, and that they are what they are on their own. They're not a tool for you to use. That kind of kicked things off and was a root for the idea of equality. And by equality, we don't mean everybody has the same skills or the same intelligence. We mean that we respect them as an end in themselves, no matter who they are.
I had you repeat that, and I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure I got this right. In this question, do you think our political parties today use people as a tool for their own?
Yeah. And I think the root of that, a root of a lot of our political problems is just too much money in politics is bought and paid for across the board, and it has been for a long time. Way too much money is controlling politics, is bought and paid for, and I think that's disrespectful to the people it's supposed to serve. It's not supposed to be about money, it's supposed to be about serving people. And, making sure people have the things that they need to live a good life. And it is all about manipulating people to try to get their vote. And you do that with all this money and all this baloney that they're throwing out there. Yeah. No, they're using people as a means to their own end.
Yeah, and I think everybody knows that. And it's fucking wild, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we're going to have a pretty deep conversation today, which
we're already pretty deep.
I'm excited for it. If whether you like them or not, or agree with everything or not everything, or some things, like, Bernie Sanders hammers that quite a bit. Let's get the money out of this bullshit, right? Because it is astonishing to me, the amount of money that goes into political campaigns, right? Astonishing. And then it becomes a thing. So, it is what it is. I think about this stuff from a different angle. It's more, I hate to use the word conspiracy, but like when you get hundreds of millions of dollars, or even small amounts, like
a billion
or $1 million from somebody, I mean, you're beholden to that person.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody told me, I'm going to give you $1 billion to run for president or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you think that doesn't come with a caveat?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, one of the, and I read a lot of history shit, and I watch a lot of history stuff. I'm really big, because my 9-year-old is really into history, which is great, because I'm a kind of a history buff. But we've been watching, like, I don't know if you've ever seen the series, The Men Who Built America.
Mm-mm.
It's fantastic. It's on the History Channel. And, it kind of goes through from, Daniel Boone, and we've made it all the way through, like, Vanderbilt and J.P. Morgan, Chase, J.P. Morgan, and Dale Carnegie. Like, those guys, I think Dale Carnegie, when he sold his company, United Steel, he basically was almost a trillionaire at that time in today's money.
They had more money than today's super wealthy.
Yes.
But,
But these fucking guys got together at one point. God damn, I'm forgetting now. Who was the president before Roosevelt? The one who got assassinated. Roosevelt was his vice president. Anyways, they didn't want Roosevelt to be president, but they made it so that he would be vice president, right? They also gave a shitload of money to whoever was running against him, so that they could build this propaganda machine so this guy could become president. This shit's been happening forever, dude.
For a very long time.
2 people ago, basically.
This stuff happened in ancient Greece.
Yeah. It repeats itself. And we're arguing about it in 2025. It's nuts.
Corruption is probably the biggest flaw in democracy. I always talk about the flaws in democracy. People think, so much so that people think that corruption comes with democracy, that democracy is innately corrupt. Always gets corrupt. My opinion is that we need to watch out for the top flaws in democracy, and we need to work to get rid of those. And the biggest one is money in politics. It's corruption. Corruption in democracy is all bad. You never want that, and we have that big time.
And it always seems like the one with the most money. All right, so if you take money out of politics, if you say, okay, you can't get money, there's no more super PACs, there's none of this shit, it's still going to come down to then you'd have Ross Perot.
Right.
You'd have a billionaire like Ross Perot running for president, and like, what did he do in the 80s there?
Funded his own campaign.
Dropped a bunch of money into the system, into marketing, into commercials.
Yep.
And that's the issue with the two-party system, is because who was it then? It was it Bush Senior?
He was running
Ross
against
Perot, and Clinton. And everybody says that if it wasn't for Ross Perot, Senior probably would have won, because those votes were taken away.
Yep.
It's a messy game, dude.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the solutions is that we just have public financing of elections. You have a certain amount, like New York City has that. They can still raise money, but you get a certain amount. That's what you run your campaign on. This isn't $1 billion thing. You don't need this much money. Run your campaign on this much money, and we're all even.
Yeah, or no money, and make it a truly government-funded.
Yeah, right.
It's mandatory. Like, each candidate, whatever the process, they get through, and it's like, all right, we've got these two now that are going to run against each other. Now we have an equal split. Whatever the money is, that's what you get, and that's what you get. And exactly. The other thing they should just get rid of is these fucking rallies, right? On both sides. I mean, because honestly, all it is sound bites anyways that they use to flood social media with. Because when they're at a rally, Democrat or Republican, Kamala Harris at her rallies, Donald Trump at his rallies, they're only speaking to the people that are voting for them. It's another huge waste of money. I don't know. What are your thoughts on something like that?
The rallies are always funny to me because they usually give the same speech over and over again.
Yeah, and the internet is wildly on top of that shit.
Yeah. And it is a lot for sound bites, especially these days.
Yeah.
I think that the rallies go a long way for the candidate connecting with people, because they need to connect with a lot of people. And being involved in local politics, events, speeches, stuff like that were the best way for me to meet people in the community when I was running for county commissioner. And I'm working on a state senate campaign right now, and doing events is the best way to connect with people. But it's a totally different ballgame when you're talking about an event with 50,000 people, or these huge stadium events, and a speech down at the park. Two totally different stories. But I will say, in defense of rallies, it's a great way to meet the people of the place that you're trying to get elected in. You go to that place because that they're meeting. Even Kamala Harris is meeting all the people in each community she goes to, political leaders, the senators, the representatives, mayors, governors. She's talking to all those people in every state and city that she goes to. So I think that is beneficial, but there's probably a lot to be said for, again, those things being bought and paid for. Those cost a lot of money to hold. And, it is used for sound bites. In some cases, it's used to spread propaganda, misinformation. They're huge platforms, so there's good and bad to them.
Yeah, misinformation and propaganda is definitely something I wanted to talk about today.
Another one of the top flaws in democracy.
Yeah, and which has been around since the beginning. People have been talking shit about each other since the beginning of time.
And it's not always true.
It's not always true. A nice little maybe anecdote to get us to where we're going to go with this, with the propaganda and the internet, and how easily you can be swayed for something. I recently just had my physical. I'm 47 years old, and I've been kind of watching my cholesterol the last few years, and now it's crazy, right? Doctor wants to put me on a statin.
Mm-hmm.
If you go on the internet, you will find the answer you're looking for. You know what I mean? I'm not a pill guy. I'm not a pharmaceutical guy. I don't like taking a bunch of shit. And you go on the internet, you can find reasons that cholesterol is great for you, and you don't need to take a statin. That's what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying.
So if you're looking for an answer, you will find it on the internet.
Absolutely.
So if you are following, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian, Independent, somebody who just doesn't really know exactly where they want to be, but they have questions and they're looking for answers, you will find what you're looking for, because there are so many different answers to the question that you have. And that sounded like a word salad there, but basically I went online to find out if I really needed to take a statin, and a couple of clicks on YouTube, a Google search here, and there's plenty on both sides that say, cholesterol is great for this and great for that, you don't need to worry about it, or just change your diet.
And who do you believe?
It's the same thing with politics, because if you're looking for a reason to vote for Kamala Harris during the last election, if you're looking for a reason to vote for Donald Trump, you're going to find that positive reinforcement on both sides.
Yep.
And you're going to see the negative for both. And a lot of times it's fucking crazy, bro. It's just like, I can see why people are upset.
Yeah.
I can see why people are like, this is a rigged game.
People who don't want to spend their life studying politics and just want to real quick read about what's going on and stuff like that have a really hard time deciphering the truth, the concept of truth. And as a philosopher, one of the big things going on in society right now, truth is like central to philosophy, and the concept of truth in the public mind in America has been eroded over the last, I'm going to say, at least 10 years, where people don't know what's true. Just like what you're saying, you can find whatever you're looking for online, and you don't know what's true. And when you lose the concept of truth, what do you have when you don't know? It's something called unreality.
Unreality. I don't think I've heard that before.
Yeah, unreality. When you don't know what's true and what's not, you can't make any claim, because someone or something's going to say, oh no, I have this counterpoint to everything. And they'll have some evidence that is somewhat convincing to whatever you have. So there is no more truth, and that to me is a nightmare.
Yeah, and I think more so since the 2016 election, they were the shakeup with Trump being elected for his first term. That was kind of like a, and because I remember very vividly, I was at the gym. It was probably 8:00 at night, and the election stuff was going on the televisions, and it was very much like, Trump doesn't have a chance, Hillary's got a 90% chance of winning, and some ladies on the treadmills, like there's no way he's going to win, blah blah blah. And that was, aside from Bush Senior. And I say just because of my age, like I've said, like I told John Helge when he was on, a really impactful moment in my life was watching the Berlin Wall come down, Ronald Reagan, it's like, wow. And then the first like real election that I watched was Bush Senior getting, the night before he got elected. Like I watched that whole thing. I was like he either, whether he really felt strongly that he was going to win or. So what I'm getting at here is I stayed up to watch the Hillary-Trump election night to see who was going to win.
Yeah.
Right? Because I was intrigued by this. And when they announced, when finally every news outlet or whatever was like, all right, Trump is, and Hillary conceded. And I watched him walk. I can't remember where he was, but I watched him get up, and he had this look at his face like, holy fuck.
He couldn't believe it either.
What just happened? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think he believed Right? And maybe I'm wrong. People that, are really passionate about President Trump will say that he knew all along.
Yeah.
Whatever. But it just looks shocking to me. And because that was the time, regardless of that story, I just thought it was funny when I saw him walking to make his acceptance speech. I was like, holy shit. Like he's fucking freaking out, right? But that election cycle was really the beginning of the strong division in our country.
Yeah.
Because now this is just from my personal experiences watching as a young man, now into my late 40s, these big elections, these presidential elections, that was the first one that was like, we've kind of opened up the floodgates for a lot of dissension in the ranks, per se. Like there is a clear division.
It's supercharged that division between people.
Yeah.
You think, for me, the beginning, I remember the Clinton election. I was in high school, but I got into politics and stuff like that during George W. Bush. That's when I started getting interested in politics. And I would take George W. Bush back in a heartbeat right now.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to just contrast the divisions during George W. Bush, Republicans and Democrats. I thought that was huge then, but then you get into modern day, after Trump, it's a whole another world, that completely different universes, completely different value sets, where with W, we were at least operating on the same values, more or less. We had different ways of getting there, but we were using the same.
Well, I mean, we had one big event, which was September 11th,
right,
which, united this country more so than I've ever seen in my lifetime. Mm-hmm.
People were closer together. Even when they had a difference of how to get there, we were headed the same place, but we just disagreed on how to get there, and it's not like that anymore. We're headed different directions.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if I'm using philosophy correctly when I say this. If I'm to philosophize on this era that we're in from 2016 to today, I think that there was a lot of people, and I still think that there are some people. And I'll preface this by saying there's no shade from me to any party. I'm just speaking from what I see, that a lot of people were sick and tired of the old guard, mm-hmm. and they were sick and tired of maybe it seemed like Trump seems like the kind of person that you would hear at a bar. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like he's not going to hold back mm-hmm. on the things that he says, or it almost felt like in 2016 that, that famous clip where he's telling Hillary, like, you'd be in jail, on the stage. And like people were just losing their minds about that, right? But it was kind of like he's talking in a way that, and I also, to just go back just a few seconds, I want a statesman, right? I want somebody that's super articulate, very polite, knows how to read a room in the right ways, mm-hmm. shake hands, do the curtsies, knows how to, almost like, like when you watch the Royals, they just have a way, mm-hmm. and it works, and it's calming. I don't need fucking chaos in the world, right. In our world here in the United States. We don't need chaos here.
Agreed.
And I think more and more people are getting a little more frustrated about that. Mm-hmm. And I think people, I tend to stay away from being vocal about politics because I'm uncomfortable with it, because I don't know everything, and I don't even think I know enough. Honestly, I could probably get myself in trouble because I just get angry. And
I hear you say that a lot, and I think you know more than you give yourself.
I don't know. Like, I'm going to read something, and I'm not going to say this. This is my friend sent me this, so I'm going to try to be as vague as possible. So then I was like, I told him, I said, I don't want to give you an answer to this just yet because I need to meditate on it. but this was after one of a recent podcasts I did.
Okay.
Because I do say that often, because I don't know. But he said, you've taken a position that politics isn't something you're interested in. And you've said that the hierarchy is Lord, family, friends, community. I do believe that, 100%. All that shit comes first, in my opinion. You've discussed resetting your algorithm, and your sincere focus is on living the good life. Yeah, I reset my algorithm, and I do focus on living the good life. Perhaps that's a little stoicism there when, I'm just looking for happiness.
That's Aristotle.
Yeah. He kind of bookends this with, isn't taking a position on issues and engaging in politics part of showing concern and working towards a solution? We need to do our best to help others, and that involves taking a position. See, I take a little bit of, not offense, but I don't think everybody needs to take a position. I don't think that's fair to the people that are around you. Mm-hmm. I have aged in a way that I think is much better than most. 10, 15 years ago, I probably would take a position and be a fucking asshole about it. Right? I'm not trying to be that guy. I mean, what do you think about that? Because I'm just, I follow you online, dog, and, one of the things was that I was kind of like, man, that's not me, and it pisses me off a little bit, like when you had that meme about, like, I don't follow politics, I just, and that's not true. I just don't pick a side.
Yeah.
Because, number one, if I'm getting all conspiratorial, the fucking president doesn't do shit. It's the Congress, it's Senate. These are the people that actually move the needle. Now, if one side has more votes than the other, I get there's a lot of issue with that, but it's never 50-50. And in a couple of years, I'm sure the Democrats are going to own the House. I mean, it's just kind of how it works.
It always goes back and forth.
It always goes back and forth. That's why I go back to saying that the president should be a statesman. He should be a Barack Obama. He should be somebody like, that has that kind of air about him. Not arrogance, but it's like you would follow that guy, Mm-hmm. Mitt Romney, for example, when he was running against Obama, those guys in a debate was, you look at the older debates, they were just very much like, ask you a question, answer it. You have your time to rebut. Okay, next question, boom. It's not like we're fighting in a bar or something like that. I guess I'm going on a tangent here.
Factual
but
and can be agreed upon.
Focus all of my political, for lack of a better term, ideology locally. What can I do locally?
Yeah.
Right?
That's
what
great.
can I do to uplift my community? Mm-hmm. Okay, to maybe a larger extent. You got state representatives, you got the governor, you've got senators, congressmen, whatever. I don't put a whole lot of weight in anything much bigger than where I'm around. Because states control the government. States' rights,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what happens in California or Texas or North Dakota, the states are controlling that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, am I wrong? I try not to sweat at night. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like when I have conversations with people, especially today, when we're talking about cost of living, groceries, housing, fucking SNAP benefits, like, Jesus Christ, dude. I don't care if you're on a food assistance program, right? I mean, I care for you as a person. Like, I care that hopefully at some point you get to a financial status where you don't have to worry about that stuff, because that's a huge stressor. But what I'm saying is the people that are losing their fucking minds because somebody's on SNAP, and you've seen this shit, yeah, where people are just like, oh, poor you. Well, it's like,
think you're a freeloader.
Yeah, but my response to that is, why the fuck do you care?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're not, but I am, it shouldn't matter to you that, you shouldn't take offense to the fact that I'm on
Right.
Food assistance program.
I think people think it costs more than it does. If you look at the numbers, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but out of your tax dollar, it's a very small amount that goes to food assistance for people compared to a whole bunch of other stuff. It's not a huge amount of our tax dollar going to food assistance. I've used food assistance when my kids were young. I had a SNAP card. I don't anymore. My wife and I are both working full time now. When my kids were young, we couldn't afford child care, so my wife had to stay home with the kids. I worked full time the entire time my kids were young. Still had a SNAP card. Immense help. Saved my butt.
Fuck yeah.
My whole, when my kids were young, but eventually after a few years I got off it and now I'm doing great. So that's the way it works.
Hey, I grew up that way, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've watched I've said this before in the podcast, I've watched my mom have to write out the back then, the sheet of paper or whatever it was, just to get milk and cheese and shit like that.
Yeah, it was a lot different back then. You had your vouchers and stuff.
Vouchers, yeah. It was a lot different. It was embarrassing for her.
Right.
And I'm like a 6-year-old, 5-year-old kid watching this, and I'm like, what's going on? And then like just the whole process, just, yeah, when people get upset because they think that somebody shouldn't have a 12-pack of Coca-Cola, it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
This is just one of those things where it's fed more and more, online and shit like that, and the division is just getting, bigger and bigger.
I want to get back to your question on whether or not you should take a position.
Yeah. Well, yeah, definitely. I want to talk about that because it's like,
that's important.
I don't think everybody needs to.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to tell you need to take a position. I know I post comics that are sometimes kind of mean, but I see comics that are mean toward my beliefs too. So I post comics. I try not to be too bad, but usually my mean stuff is in the form of a comic on my stories.
Yeah.
It's just a joke. I think you should take a position. I want to take a position, and that's rooted in a philosophical concept that I think you can know things. In philosophy, there's a question, can you know anything? Is there truth? I think there is truth. I think you can know things. And if I know it and I think I know it, I'm going to stand on it. I have an opinion. I'm going to stick up for it. So that's my belief. It doesn't have to be your belief, but I think you can know truth, and I'm going to stand on my truth.
Right. I think I do know truth. And I stand on my truth, but I don't vocalize it.
Right. And sometimes you got to argue for it.
Right. But I also grew up in a time where, people just didn't talk about politics.
Mm-hmm.
It was a gentleman's game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you could have a Thanksgiving table divided and nobody would know.
Right.
You got a problem with something, use your vote. The constant bombardment from both sides drives me fucking nuts.
You got to pick your spots, too. I'm not going to be arguing politics at the Thanksgiving table. I argue politics where it's appropriate.
But today is what I'm saying. Today, from 2016 till today, politics are argued at the Thanksgiving table.
I don't, but yes, you're right. A lot of people do.
Yeah. I've got some very dear friends that are on one political party and very dear friends that are in the other, family members, vice versa. Like, I'm not trying to...
So do I.
Yeah. And, like, I honestly think that there has to be good in both parties.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree? That there is good in both sides?
Yeah.
So I think what we need to do is take the verbal violence out of the game, too. And then I start going down dark holes and alleys because I'm like, what is right to take away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what is okay to keep.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people would be like, if you could just stop talking like assholes to each other, that'd be a big starter. But everything is like, one side will have one take, the other side has a different take, but it's always rooted in, if it wasn't for the Republicans, if it wasn't for the Democrats,
Yeah.
It just completely continues to divide us, and I think it's part of the game.
We are definitely extremely divided. What do you mean part of the game?
Because if we're constantly divided, we only have to have 1%.
Right.
You only have to have 1%.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Keep us divided.
Correct.
Fighting against each
Yes.
other.
If you hate your neighbor, you're going to vote the other way.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody on either side trying to like hold hands around a bonfire right now. You know, actually bring people together.
You know who's good at that is John Helge. He calls his counterpart in the Republican Party in Manistee, and he has coffee with them once a month. I believe it is. They have coffee together and they talk politics and are friendly and kind of bridge the gap so they can see what each other's doing. You know, I respect John for doing that. He's good at that.
Yeah.
Not all people are.
Yeah. I mean, politicians be politicking, right? So, and I like John a lot. I think John's a good guy. He's a good soul. You know, there should be more of that. And I think a lot of people say, well, if I get elected, I will go across the aisle and try to bring somebody over to my side and whatever. Just, you know, we can talk about this till our ears bleed. But I mean, I just don't see it happening, you know. And that, so to kind of steer it a little bit more, if we're talking presidents, so in 2028 we're going to have a new president.
Yeah.
There's a few things I want to grab out here. It's like one of the things I can't stand is when the scare tactic of, you know, there's never going to be another election. Trump is going to run again, right? Well, he can't. I mean, there are things in place in the Constitution. There's no way he can. He can't even be, if let's say J.D. Vance won in 28 and J.D. made him vice president and J.D. dies in office, Trump still can't be president. I mean, there are laws that keep him from. So the fact that rhetoric is out there, you know, and Gavin Newsom is talking about it, you know, and I'm sure the hats that say 2028 on them or whatever that Trump's passing around, you know,
that's not
he's
helping.
poking the bear.
Yeah.
He's just, it's like, what the fuck? So my where am I going with this thought here? So like, when you look at now, and because it's so quick, it's 4 years, right? It just feels like today you can't get anything done, because as soon as you're in, you're trying to get reelected, or as soon as you're in, you're eventually in a year and a half or so, you know, J.D. Vance is going to be out there pushing it. The Democratic side, who knows? I mean, I've seen people talk about Kamala running again. Gavin Newsom's making his turn around the podcast. You know, he's really trying to hit it hard. And so it's like one cycle after another. You know, like, so again, that's what I come back to. Like, I don't give a fuck about the president. It's everybody else that's elected.
There's a lot more to the equation.
A lot more to the equation. I mean, one of the things that I think about all the time is like, Nate Markham gets elected to the presidency of the United States, right? You're the top CEO of the richest country in the world, okay? So you can't do everything. But when you go into the office that first day and the lights are off, somebody turns the light on, and there's some dude sitting on a couch with sunglasses on, and he says, okay, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to run it, you know? Because there's plenty of people that have been there long before you ever showed up that are like, you're not rocking this boat. That's a little conspiracy of mine. But, I mean, you got insurance companies, you got big business, you got, you know, people with exorbitant amounts of money that are controlling everything. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a little crazy. But
no, you're not crazy at all. I think the U.S. government's been in a stalemate and not been able to get much done since Obama's first midterms. This is when I remember. Obama had Congress for 2 years, and then during his first term's midterms, he lost Congress, and really wasn't able to. He did some things, but he wasn't able to do nearly what he wanted to because he didn't have Congress. And we've been in kind of a stalemate. I think Biden had it for 2 years. He was able to do some things. But more or less, we've been in a total stalemate, and neither side has been able to enact what they what they want to do. I think Trump is getting through a lot that he wants to do, but even there, he's not getting through everything that he wants. So we've been in a stalemate because we are so divided and disagree on so much. And I think some of that goes back to truth being eroded, and we completely disagree on what the truth is. We disagree on what values we should have. Like I said before, we're not headed the same place anymore. It's not just a disagreement on how to get there, you know.
Yeah, and I think about games. I think like war is a game. It's a huge game because the amount of money that's spent on our military, right? And I'm a vet. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm down for all the nice toys. You know what I'm saying? But to what end? Like what's the real end here? You know, we're spending all this money there, and yet we can't have, you know, you get diagnosed with a crazy, you know, cancer. But we're not putting nearly the amount of money into that kind of research that we are to fucking seeing through a building. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's wild to me. And it's like with healthcare today. I was actually talking to my wife about this just the other day as well. You know, because all the stuff with the Affordable Care Act and whatever the fuck Trump's trying to do with that. If you get into a car accident and you've got a broken arm, a broken leg, and some broken ribs or whatever, right? And you're unconscious. The ambulance people, they come, the paramedics come, they take you to the hospital. Do they just set you on a bed and not fix your broken leg and broken arm and all this stuff before they say, can you pay for this?
Right.
No, they can't refuse. Mm-hmm. So they fix you. But if you have, you're in need of like a lung transplant, the first thing they say is, well, we need to see your insurance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So the craziness about it is a broken leg and a broken arm emergency gets fixed. But we can't give you a new set of lungs.
A long-term illness that needs to be treated. Probably.
So, you know, and I kind of go over in my mind is like free health care, something that every person should get, right? Mm-hmm. You know, the high level, looking down on it, like what does it affect? I mean, it'd be great if we could just get fixed and never have to worry about making a payment because, you know, if, God forbid, in today's world, like I've said it before, most people only have like $800 in their checking account. They're one car repair away from being broke.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like medical debt is a huge fucking issue. People don't go to the hospital because they're afraid they're not going to be able to pay for it. So, you know, 100 years ago, you just went to the doctor.
I'm not going to the doctor right now because I don't want to pay for it. I'm waiting for my new job's health insurance to kick in December so I can go.
Yeah. Like, I don't know enough about socialism to say anything other than I don't think it works. Mm-hmm. But there are plenty of things that do work that are rooted in socialism. The fire department, the police department, you know. It doesn't matter if you live in a $50,000 house versus somebody that lives in a $10 million house. If it's on fire, the fire department's coming.
Yeah.
Right? Paid through your tax dollars or whatever. So it's kind of like, well, again, if you're going to fix a broken arm because it's an emergency, why don't you save this person's life who's got a long-term illness that could be fixed?
I'm going to take issue with calling that stuff socialism, where there may be some overlap. The world's democracies, that's democracy. And you look all throughout history, like the first food program to give poor people food was in England. And it wasn't a socialist, it was a democracy. And you look at all the democracies the world over, and you'll find things like fire department, police department, food assistance in democracies. They're not socialist countries, they're democracies.
Right.
But I understand what you're saying. There's an overlap.
There's an overlap there, correct.
Yep. Some socialist countries have been democracies, but not always. There are a lot of different combinations of stuff. And in my opinion, I think that stuff like that is more common in democratic countries. So I call it democracy rather than socialism, even though there is overlap.
I follow you. It was more of like an analogy. Like these things are free. We're going to save your house. We're going to save your puppy, right, from the burning building. But, You know, I bring up the lung transplant things. I got a really good friend that had to have a lung transplant, and the shit that he went through. He's got a team of like insurance analysts that he pays to make sure that he has always got the proper insurance and riders and shit and all this extra stuff to make sure that it's paid for. It's super expensive, you know, but my guy's walking around with a new set of lungs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I got my blood work done through I don't know if you're familiar with like Function Health.
No.
The reason why I did this is because we have, you know, our insurance has a super high deductible, so we have a health savings plan. You know, we pay for our medical stuff out of pocket, and every year I get a physical, right, and blood work, and it's really expensive. So I went and got my blood work done through Function Health, and it's just a blood panel, right? There's a bunch of extra biomarkers and stuff that they check. Go to Quest, get it done, and they give you a PDF of everything, and it's very analytical, and it was $400. So I took it to my doctor the other day when I had my physical, and you know, he's looking. He's like, "Wow, where did you get this?" And I told him he didn't know about this. He goes, "Can I ask how much?" And I said, $400. That would have cost me almost $4,000.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, why would it cost me $4,000 through your office, and it only cost me $400, and the tests are the same?
Yeah. You know, my opinion is I don't have a problem paying for health insurance. It doesn't have to be free for me as long as it's a reasonable price that I can afford.
Well, and then they don't fuck around with what's covered and what's not.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm paying, like, I'm a perfect candidate for insurance because I don't use it.
Right.
I've never broken a bone. I don't have any diseases. You know, I'm like, they want to insure me.
Just go for your checkups. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I don't have any illnesses.
Yeah,
I go for my checkups, and when something gets messed up.
Yeah. Here's thanks for paying us every single month or whatever, or annually or whatever. But my God, when it's time to use it, that's why they call it insurance.
Yeah.
You know?
Like when I got COVID and had to go to the emergency room 3 times. You know, had I not had insurance then, I'd have been in big trouble. But I might have died had I not been able to do that, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I don't. And that's, you know, so people are, so again, you know, when we're talking about housing and the cost of food and insurance, and then you get politics involved, and people are arguing and fighting, and it's us against them. And that brings me into, what did I want to talk about? I'm going to lose my train of thought because I got so much going through my mind right now, dude.
I hear you.
Yeah, well, words, that's what it was. Both sides uses rhetoric, right? That I think is scary. And it's so you got like the maybe to a different extent, the kid that shot that healthcare CEO, the Charlie Kirk assassin, the goofy kid that shot Trump. Do you think that the rhetoric that's being used today, right, is seeping into these people's minds? They're already a little on the bent side.
Underlying mental health issues in those people probably for sure, but they are listening to all this crazy stuff and are driven by it.
Because I can't stand the velocity and consistency with words like fascism, socialism, racism. Everybody's a racist, apparently. You know what I mean? It just seems like if you don't agree with somebody, it's like, it's because they're racist. But it's like over and over and over and over again. And to come to, who was it? I can't remember who posted it. But it was the deal where it was a graph, the Democrat Party, and it was basically like young men, like the younger demographic wasn't voting or Democratic,
like they used to, but now they're leaning toward Trump.
But the age was also like those that were in their 60s, you know,
and also higher education levels and higher incomes. were voting blue in way poor people. It's not the party of poor people anymore like it used to be. Poor people are voting red.
Why do you think that is? I have my thoughts. Why do you think that is?
Number one, they're more
in the age too. Why do you think younger people are voting more Republican?
I think they're being convinced of things that aren't true. I think civic education has a lot to do with it. I don't want to insult people's intelligence, but I think civic education is lacking. I think misinformation is really taking over people's minds, where they're believing things that I don't think are true. And people are just so poor. People are poor, and they're more poor. I know that there's two very different stories of people who are making money. If you have a 401k, if you have stocks, they're probably through the roof right now. You're doing well. If you don't have that stuff, if you're a poor person, you're more poor than ever. You can barely afford food. You're going to Dollar General for your food, and they're mad. People are upset because their lives are messed up, and they want someone to blame. And I think that maybe they're leaning toward a party, in my opinion, is blaming more. There's always, the radical left Democrats, You
don't think the Democrats say shit like the crazy conservatives? Or
they do, but I think one side is doing it way more and way worse. I see a lot more tact and professionalism and statesmanship on the Democratic side than I do on the Republican side. The Republican side is losing its statesmanship, its tactfulness. They are big time calling names right up there on the podium, calling people terrible names, dehumanizing people, downright dehumanizing entire groups of people on national TV to millions of people. And what I see I'm talking about Democratic politicians now. What, like Democrats on Facebook, sure, I'm sure they're using all types of language, but the professional Democrats are upholding their statesmanship a lot more than the Republicans are. And I think that speaks to a lot of people. People like hearing the Republicans do that. Some people, obviously, they do, because they want someone to blame for why their life's messed up and why they're so poor. When they feel like they're working hard and that they've held up their end of the bargain, why am I not getting ahead? They want to blame somebody. And when they see someone blaming people, okay, we're going to blame them.
Yeah, I think there's some psychology around that for sure. I think when I see, in particular, like young men who are trying to find their way in life, today it's a lot more difficult than it used to be. And it's really becoming more evident that a lot of these young guys are just spending a lot of time online. Mm-hmm. They're disconnected from their friends, what friends they have. They might just be on Discord or Twitch. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's more and more difficult to find a mate. It's so easy now to just go online and swipe, and the dating scene is now more online, and they're more afraid to hear the word no. Yeah. They're afraid to get out and really put themselves into situations that are uncomfortable.
Loneliness among young men right now, all-time highs.
Suicide.
They have
crazy.
Lower numbers of friends than in the past, and young people are becoming more isolated. I think you're exactly right, because they're online. Lives are lived virtually. Yeah. In your phone, it's all virtual now. You're not making human connections down at the skating rink like I was when I was a kid with 100 friends. That doesn't happen anymore. Mm-mm.
Their social skills are diminishing. Mm-hmm. It's hard to find anything more than a minimum wage job, because they're just they go to if they're lucky enough to go to a college or university or whatever, it's still very much seclusionism, where they kind of draw into themselves. It's and they're looking for somebody to fight for them. And I think when they've been told over and over again that masculinity is a bad thing, when they've been told over and over again that that they're not they almost feel like they're not supposed to be men anymore, right? I mean, I'm a bro, okay? I am. I know you don't like that, but I am.
Well,
and it's one of those things where, to a certain point, I really think men have to learn to be men.
I probably,
and I think, think when they get caught up in this downward spiral, and they're listening and they're watching some of this shit, and they're like, to make a smaller point, like asking a girl out might be something that fucking terrifies them, because they don't know, the reaction might be like,
it's not like it was.
It's not like it was.
We were younger,
you know what I'm saying? So they're looking for somebody who could talk a little shit and say, hey, it's not you, it's the way society is today, and we're going to try to change that for you.
Yeah.
And I've noticed, and I think it's good, it might be a little too late, but I've noticed that, like when Gavin Newsom's making his rounds now, he's talking a lot about masculinity.
He's a masculine dude.
And I'm like, where the fuck was that? You know what I mean? Because for the longest time, a lot of the stuff on the liberal side was, we got to tone down this shit. And I think the young men are like, well,
So you might not have seen this post, but I posted something about masculinity and bro culture that maybe I dislike the bro culture for different reasons, because I think I have no problem with men being men, and I try to be a man and be masculine, of course, and I definitely respect men who are strong leaders, step up and take control of their own lives, get involved in their communities, lead their families. Nothing but respect for that. Like, masculinity is fine with me as long as it's not too far. When you start dehumanizing and disrespecting people and thinking, it's all about hierarchy and I'm at the top of the.
I'm on your same page there.
It's like you can take it too far.
You're right.
I guess like anything too far. Like anything else, you can take it too far. There are other reasons why I make fun of bro culture, and it's more related to the erosion of truth. I think, don't underestimate how important this truth thing is to me, because like the bro podcasts are always doing the alternatives. And I always say the alternative to the truth is false. I don't think that maybe they make good points, maybe they come across stuff that's good, but a lot of that stuff when I watch, Rogan, Theo Von, stuff like that, which I don't watch much of, but the clips I catch, sometimes they're talking about crazy stuff, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not true. And one of Joe Rogan's fundamental premises is that he doesn't know, but he wants to give a platform to like different ideas. It's like stuff that you don't typically hear. Like, okay, we all think this, but what about all this other stuff? I think a lot of the times all that other stuff is not right. Like the widely accepted thing that everybody believes is true. That's true. And when you're looking at all this other alternative stuff that's not true, that's eroding the truth. That's eroding the value of truth in people's minds. When you consider every single thing that somebody says is right up there with what you learned in school, like, what if what you learned in school is right? What if what all these guys are saying is just a bunch of quack nonsense? You're losing the value of truth there. That's my big problem with bro stuff, is not masculinity.
I agree with that. I think that as I grow this podcast, it'll become more and more evident to a lot of people that I'm open to all conversations. Mm-hmm. My goal is to continually have people on with different viewpoints and let them speak, mm-hmm. and also maybe learn from them as well. Change my ideas, change my views, stuff like that. I use these long conversations. Like how many times have you just, maybe you're different, but like, I don't know how many times I sit down and have a 2-hour or 3-hour conversation with somebody, mm-hmm. right? I don't even do that with my wife, and I love her to death, but we'll talk and then it's time for a break. You know what I'm saying? But this gives me an opportunity to really get to know somebody. This is the second time that you're on, and I think you're a super solid human, so I appreciate talking to you. Most people, almost everybody, I don't think I've had anybody on here that I couldn't say that they're a shitty person.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's not to say that I won't have somebody on at some point that I am a complete polar opposite to, and maybe I'll learn something.
Yeah.
But that's why I think the conversation is always a good thing, whether you're listening to Rogan or to, have you ever listened to Scott Galloway?
No.
Dude, so I got angry. I like Scott Galloway, all right? And I'll send you some of his stuff when we're done.
Okay.
He's got a few podcasts. He's got one where it's like just the Professor Pod or something like that. He's a very rich person, and he's not ashamed of that. He's a Democrat, and he's also got another podcast that he does with, I can't remember the lady's name off the top of my head. Anyways, there was a time there where, some of the things that you would hear online or whatever is the Democrats really need, like the Democrat Joe Rogan, right? He's probably as close to that as you're going to get.
Okay.
And I think you'd find him interesting because he really hammers hard on masculinity and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a very pro, Democrat approach. He can't stand Trump, so I'm sure a lot of people would like that. But he's super fucking smart, and he's really into like financial literacy and stuff like that. So like, there's a guy that I think could help shift the tides a little bit. He's unapologetic, which I like that in people. But like somebody like, I watch Joe Rogan stuff. I watch a lot of the comedy stuff. I'm really into shit that makes me laugh. If
Rogan had a great stand-up in like 01 or 02 that I used to watch a million times. One of my favorite jokes was, if you were on a deserted island, how long before you could build a cell phone?
See, that shit's funny.
That was a good one.
I listen to his show because he gets people on that show that's like, I'd never be able to hear this person talk for that long.
Yeah.
Like the times that he's had like Bernie Sanders on, for example, and Bernie's been making his rounds, and he's been making his rounds on what people would call conservative podcasts.
Yeah,
right?
He goes on everything.
He goes on everything, and I appreciate that about him. We can't have. I'd love to have 1,000 Bernie Sanders, because he's just kind of, he caucuses with the Democrats. I'm sure he leans a little bit more that way, but he's kind of an independent guy. He really kind of, it's people like that I'm drawn to.
He's critical of both sides. He's still critical of the Democrats. Yeah. And he takes a little bit of a different approach to it.
Yeah. So I get what you're saying. People could watch a show like Joe Rogan's and be like, half the shit he talks about is pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But
I'm sure there's a lot of good in it too. I don't watch a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm really into like history. I'm really into like Egypt. I'm really into, creation.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times he has some YouTubers that I follow on his show talking about these things, and I'm like, yeah, that's fun to listen to, the history side of the things. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I could go down a whole other path with just Egypt and the pyramids, but we're not going to do that today. We're not going to do that today. I want to get your thoughts on the 2028 election.
Okay.
All right, because right now, what I think we're looking at, because again, it's everybody's constantly trying to get elected. You've got, for right now, it looks like the running for president in 28 on the conservative side, Democrat or Republican side, is going to be J.D. Vance. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people trying to jockey for that position, but he looks like he's the vice president, so it just makes sense that he's going to run for president. And on the Democrat side, I see Gavin Newsom making the rounds and Kamala again. Maybe saying she is, maybe saying she is. She's doing that fucking thing that a lot of these people do.
Her toes in.
Yeah, like, is it warm enough yet? I don't know. My opinion, I don't think they should run Harris again.
Even the Democrats that I know don't want Kamala Harris. I might be in the vast minority to say that I would vote for her again because I liked her message. I listened to most of her speeches. She won by lost by a very small margin. She raised $1 billion in just a few months.
Because
she created
to go back to the beginning, that's fucking wild.
It is. She created a firestorm. People were in an absolute frenzy for her, and she only ran for a few months. I think she ran an incredible campaign, and I watched it very closely, maybe more closely than some of her critics, like talking about how she was for they, them, not you. She didn't talk about trans rights. She talked about kitchen table economic issues over and over and over and over, and she gave the same speech over and over and over again, a lot of it, and it was about kitchen table economic issues. I'd vote for Kamala again. I know a lot of people wouldn't. Even my Democrat friends are probably like, "You're crazy. We should never run her. That's political suicide." They might be right. I'm just saying, for me, that'd be all right with me. I also like Newsom. I'd also be all right with somebody else. I think there's going to be a big primary on both sides. I think a lot of people, once we get closer, it's still pretty far out. Once we get closer, I bet we're going to have a lot of people throw their hat in the ring. Last primaries were huge.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people vying for this position.
How much do you think age is going to play a factor in this next election and subsequent elections? Because age has been the biggest. I mean, from Biden, kind of falling off mentally towards the end there.
Yeah.
Trump is, I don't know,
he's
100
up there too.
It's kind of annoying.
Yeah. Look at the age of the Senate.
I'm not trying to be an ageist, but at some point, I know I can't do things that I could do when I was younger. Yeah. And I know in 20, 30 years from now, I'm not going to be able to do the things that I can do today.
And you got guys like David Hogg. You know David Hogg? He's the young guy who's what's the name of his organization? I can't remember the name of his real young guy who's kind of blazing a path in politics. We're saying we need to elect more young people, and these old people in politics are leading us the wrong way. And we need to move on from the old guard.
Pelosi's resigning or whatever, or stepping down. I mean, she's been there since Caesar was in office in Rome.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about, is people like Pelosi, who I have nothing but respect for, but she needs to move on. And we need new faces in there. We need new blood. David Hogg's a real young guy. I love what he talks about, and he's talking about the changing of the guard, and that these people need to retire and step down. He was the guy who was trying to primary, he popularized the terms asleep at the wheel Democrats. And he was targeting what he thought were weak Democrats in the Senate and House across the country and primarying them with younger, more progressive, what he thought were better candidates, picking out asleep at the wheel older Democrats to primary with younger Dems. And he caught a lot of flack from a certain group of people. And and I see this in the state Senate campaign that I'm working on right now. There is an old guard that has a lot of money and power, and they want to do things a certain way that exists within this money and power system that they control, that they have the strings of that firmly in their grasp. All the funding from the PACs and the special interests, the Democrats and the Republicans both do this. We're seeing in the state Senate campaign, the candidate's first time doing this too, and we're just learning as we go here. Big money plays a big part even at the state level, and those donors are pulling strings, like the energy industry, for example, Consumers Power and stuff like that. They put a lot of money into certain places and they get favors on both sides. And then there are the newcomers, the younger people who don't have that PAC funding, who don't have millions of dollars. Like for this state Senate campaign, the Senate Dems said that we need to raise $5 million for a state Senate campaign, when the last candidate raised less than $500,000. And now first they were like $1 million. And then they're like, no, you need to raise $5 million. But 4 years ago, he raised $500,000 and he was good. So what's going on? Like, they just keep upping the numbers, and it's impossible unless you have corporate super PAC money. That's the only place you're going to get that money. You're not going to get that from doing fundraisers.
Yeah, $20 here
at grandma's house.
Yeah.
You know that you're not going to raise $5 million from doing that. You have to have corporate funding, and the Senate Dems are saying you need this corporate funding and you have to do this. And our campaign's kind of saying, well, what if we don't?
Yeah.
What if we just raise it grassroots? What if we spend less money? What if instead of blowing $1 million on TV ads, we just post on TikTok and go viral because we're creative? So,
I mean,
and we're not the only ones doing that. A lot of younger candidates are doing that.
Yeah, I've noticed. And that's where the smart money is, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, either side. If you want to tap into a younger voter, you got to meet them where they're at. And they're not watching CNN. They're not watching Fox News.
No,
you know.
They're not even watching cable.
No.
They're not watching any station on cable.
No. They're watching YouTube.
Yeah.
Shorts.
Yeah.
You know, it's TikTok, Reels on Instagram. That's what they're watching.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again. So you want to send a message to.
I have 2 teenage girls. I know what they're watching. Short videos.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. That's where it's at, and it's free.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can put money into pushing that video.
You know what's surprising,
so cheap,
is how much they know about politics from doing this. My kids talk to me about politics all the time and telling me stuff that I didn't teach them, and they're coming to me with all this stuff that they learned online, and a lot of it checks out to me. Like, they are learning stuff about politics.
What about the stuff that doesn't check out? See, that's the thing too.
Yeah.
Again, we go back to the internet.
100%.
You know, I could find the answer I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to go back to the beginning there, but yeah, it's the Wild West.
It is.
You know, and I think people get a little pissy, or a lot pissy, when you know you're used to hearing a message from the side that you're against, air quotes against, right? And then it's time for an election, and they're like, well, we need to change. And then they go out and hit podcasts or whatever, and people are like, are you just saying that now?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I don't know if, I mean, there'd have to be, I think, a real, like, political, if we're going to talk about these young voters, right? It's men. It's not, but from what I see, it's not necessarily the young female voters. It's the young male voters that are really leaning right. And for the longest time, it's because the Republicans have been speaking to them. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how quick that can change.
You're
I'm playing
right.
devil's advocate here. I'm trying to steel man this
You're right.
because
the Republicans are speaking to men in ways that the Democrats aren't. The Democrats are speaking to a lot of different interest groups, and I see it as a Democrat man who goes to conferences and events, and I sometimes feel excluded. I sometimes sit there and think, what about me? I do. I mean, I see it. Like, I'm not blind to that. I see who they're talking to, and I'll, I think that my opinion on, like, identity politics doesn't work in rural areas, but I think that, and this goes back to ethics, the whole point of having ethics is that you do it even when it's not expedient. Like, it's something you stand on no matter what. Like, you're not going to break your principles when you're tested, right? That's the whole reason you have principles. When you're tested, you stick by them. So when I'm sticking up for a certain interest group, when I come out against racism, sexism, homophobia, even if people don't want to hear that, it's like, that's not a reason for me to stop, because that's a principle that I'm standing on. And when it's tested, that doesn't mean I'm going to stop. At the same time, I'm participating in rural politics where it turns people off like a light switch. So, like, that's a real tug of war there. Like, how do you handle that? And even when I see it myself, when I feel like other people are being talked to and I'm being ignored, or do you know how many times I'm in a room of Democrats and they start hating on white men, just openly bashing white men?
Yeah, that's dumb.
I'm like, yo, I'm a white man.
Yeah.
And it can hurt. And you're not supposed to, I feel like you're not supposed to say that, but I'll be 100% honest with you. It happens. And I'm in that room and I'm like, yo.
Yeah, you're like, yo, what the fuck? That's what I'm talking about with these young dudes.
Yeah.
It's like.
And they don't like that.
They don't like that. And, they don't like when there was that, this probably will sound insensitive or whatever. I'm sure I'll get some hate for this, but like, I don't even understand the whole pronoun thing, right? And I'm not trying to take a course on this right now, but like a lot of these kids are, I say kids, these young people are like, Jesus Christ. Like now we gotta, always check or find out. And it's confusing, and there's all kinds of stuff online about it. And the right's like, hey, you don't fucking have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And so they're like, yeah, I don't have to deal with that. And, you get into some of these really more delicate issues with like trans people and stuff like that. And nobody wants to fuck with that. Like nobody wants to. I mean, honestly, nobody wants to. It's like, let's stay as far the fuck away from this as possible because it's tough.
You're going to immediately turn off a lot of young men
if
you try to make them say their pronouns every time they introduce themselves.
Yeah.
They're not ever going to do that. And they're going to say, no way, I'm not participating in anything you're doing.
Yeah.
Straight up.
But the pronoun thing is kind of wild. Like some of it's like I get, some of it sounds like a name from like another universe, and I'm like, I don't know what that even means, the Z's or whatever. So it's like, even me, I'm like, hey, I'm good, do you? And I find myself sometimes I'm like, I know a person that I like, so I'll just say that. I'm not going to say their name or whatever, but it can be confusing. Like some days, this person looks like a dude, and some days, it's a dress and makeup and whatever.
Right.
What?
Well, people like that, yeah.
And here's the deal. I don't give a fuck.
Right.
But being a 47-year-old guy who's still trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, like I'm like, every now and then I'll be like, hey dude, hey guy, and I'm like, oh fuck. But they're cool enough to be like, hey man, I get it. You know?
It's hard for guys like us to understand that perspective.
Yeah.
But we're both totally cool with it and not hating on anybody who's doing that, but it's hard to understand.
Right. And I think that
and the Republicans play on that.
Yeah, which is just so dumb, dude.
Yeah.
It's just so dumb. So they go back to like the broader upper level stuff. It's like, I know I can filter out both sides. So now you're on a path of trying to figure out the lesser of two evils, which is still crazy. Right? Because if you want to be president of the United States, I don't give a shit if you're a male or a female. You got to be a little bit of a psychopath to want to take that job anyways. You know what I mean? Like the top of the top. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Would you agree? I mean, I don't think, I know I'd never want to be president.
Well, people,
I want that kind of heat, dog.
When I ran for county commissioner and found out that I loved campaigning and doing politics, so many people who have experienced campaigning hate it. They hated running for office and just think it's the worst thing. And then I loved it, and people are like, you're crazy. Yeah. Because I really enjoyed it. A lot of the stuff that is involved with it was right up my alley. And I was good at it. So I don't know if I do think it's crazy. I think it's great. I would love to run for president. Not that I'm qualified in any way, but
anybody can run for president.
I'm going to stay local. I'm staying local. I know I could, but local politics is my spot.
How do you feel about the slow-moving wheel of politics, though? I think that's what turns people away, because it is. Some things can happen quick. You got everybody on the same page, but sometimes it's like, man, why is this taking so long? Just a little, what I would perceive as a little thing. We got to fix this, whatever this is, this piece of real estate, right?
Yeah.
We just know it needs to be fixed.
That's why people don't like the bureaucracy and sometimes feel like something that ran like a company, a corporation would be better because you can make stuff happen quick. And governments have all this bureaucracy and you have to vote on this and they have to vote on this and then they're in a stalemate and you can't get anything done for years. I understand because I've been watching government in a stalemate my whole adult life. And if you look around the world, it's not like that everywhere. It's worse in some places and better in some places. But there are different systems of government where, like France or England or something like that, where they'll totally sweep their government out. Sometimes you hear they're changing governments.
Gone.
They're changing governments today.
Yeah.
I think we need to do some stuff like that, and I think things happen faster there because they do stuff like that. And they just do things in a different way to where it's not caught up in a stalemate. And we have this just entrenched system of people who spend their entire lives in this spot, getting all this money from big corporations and all these interests, and I don't think you have that everywhere, and you can find examples where stuff is done better and things happen faster.
Yeah. What do you think about the news, American news today? The broader question, is it all fake?
No, I don't think it is all fake.
I'm not talking about the weather and local 7 and 4 and 9 and 10. I'm talking about like CNN, Fox News, MSNBC.
One really important thing that sticks with me that I learned in, I don't remember what class it was at U of M, but they said that major news channels have the most to lose if they report false information because they can be sued big time. And an example of that is
BBC.
I mean, maybe you have one there, but Fox News was sued for a whole lot of money by Dominion, and like $1 billion or close to it. News channels are very vulnerable if they present false information. They can be sued. Like they have a lot to lose. That, say, for example, me and you talking on the street, we can say whatever we want. No one's going to sue us. But a news channel they have fact checkers and they need to be very careful about that's why Fox News is classified as an entertainment company. They're not beholden to the same standards.
Loophole, dude.
Loophole. A little loophole.
Well, I brought up the BBC because I just saw something the other day that they did some shit with Trump's January 6th speech where they had a beginning part and then they went 56 minutes in the ahead and stitched it together as it was like one solid speech. And the CEO or whatever just resigned and some other shit.
Oh, really?
He was like,
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, we fucking dropped the ball on that one.
Yeah, that's an example of that they are held accountable for that stuff, and millions of people are watching, and if they could possibly be sued, they will be. So I think that goes a long way for the truth value of the news, that they're high standards, and some of that is the most reliable information. That's why it's cited so much. You can cite the news. So no, I don't think it's all fake, but I think you need to cross-reference. You need to cross-reference, do your due diligence, and don't just take it all at face value. Make sure that what the news tells you checks out.
But they do the same shit that like podcasters do. Fuck, for a smaller extent, like I do. I clip. Like this podcast will get clipped, and I'll put out the stuff that I think is the most interesting.
Yeah.
But I think you take that retired generation right now are the ones that are really watching the news, and the younger generations are getting all their information from clips. Right, predominantly. They're not watching like a whole podcast. As much as I would love people that consume my podcast to listen to this entire podcast, they probably won't. But they'll watch a lot of my clips.
They'll watch the clips. As a podcaster and YouTuber myself, and I watch my analytics closely, they watch for 10 seconds, 30 seconds. 1 minute.
Yeah.
Flatline.
Yeah. You know, and that's no shade on the content you're putting out either.
Yeah.
I mean, I watch my analytics too, but the growth is always in the clips, which is wild. I mean, but like I get like iTunes and Spotify do really well for me. I think it's just a different consumer, you know. But what I'm saying is, at what point does the news go away?
Yeah.
And it's just people talking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, because even me, I don't watch the news. And I know that pisses people off, but I can't stand it because that, you know, if it bleeds, it leads is really true. And that's all that's on there. It's either, you know, depending on what you're watching, they're basically complaining about the administration, or they're complaining about the previous administration, and it's their fault, and it's their fault. And by the way, we just bombed the shit out of Syria, and we,
you hit on.
Because I can see some wild shit online too, but I try not to watch it.
You hit on something that I think is a problem with the news, is that they report what's going to get them views, what's going to get them to make people tune in and stay tuned in. And that's not always necessarily what people need to know, or the most important thing that they should be reporting on. They report on, if it bleeds, it leads. Yeah, you're right about that. That they're reporting on stuff that's going to bring in viewers, not necessarily the most important issues of the day.
What are your thoughts on? Do you want a Coke? Are you good?
I'm good.
What are your thoughts on, like, download information, like just constantly being being bombarded by information and things that are going on around the world constantly? I've said this before that, you know, I draw a line, right? I have an invisible line, and I have stacked things on top of that line that I think are super important to me that I need to focus on, and there's a bunch of shit below this line. Mm-hmm. And some of that is kind of trying to tune out all the fucking chaos. There's plenty here, you know what I mean? But the chaos that's you're constantly being bombarded with around the world seems like, as humans, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I feel like in our DNA we're not supposed to know. When we were scrounging for berries and twigs and shit, we didn't really care so much what was going on even a quarter mile away, because that was a lifetime away. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just, I feel like there's just so much data that we're being bombarded with. Like, it's eroding us, bro.
I haven't watched cable TV in a few decades. I do not watch TV. I don't watch.
We don't have a TV at our house.
I don't really. We do. I mean, but it doesn't get much use. Even my kids don't really. Since I don't watch TV, they don't watch much TV. We don't have cable.
Good.
Never have.
Good.
Of course, we're all on the internet, but I'm not watching Hulu. I'm not watching Netflix. I do watch YouTube because I can pick exactly what I want to watch, and it can be intellectual, and it's stuff you're never going to find on cable. But I don't spend a ton of time. And I have a small business where I sell vintage records. And
yeah, I saw your post about how much you sold. Congratulations. That's really awesome, dude. Like, I was like, what?
It's hard to believe.
I took a step back. I'm like, holy shit, congratulations. I didn't know that there was that big of a market.
Neither did I when I started.
Great job.
Yeah.
Great job.
Yeah.
Nice side hustle.
It is. One of the best decisions I ever made to start doing that.
Yeah.
But I have in my basement, I redid my basement and set up, like, I call it my record room. It's not my basement anymore. It's a record room. And there are no TVs, no computers. There's just a speaker so I can listen to music. And I typically just listen to jazz. Sometimes a little hip hop, but even then I listen to jazz, classic rock in my record room. And I unplug. It's a place for me to unplug because I think you're right. It's too much information.
Yeah.
It's just a constant bombardment. And I remember 80s and 90s when I was a kid growing up. I went to high school in the 90s when it wasn't like that. And you had moments of peace where I could just put on a CD and read a magazine for a few hours. That doesn't happen anymore. Mm-hmm. But I can unplug in my record room and disconnect from all of that stuff. And it feels like just walking in that room with no television and no computer screen, it feels different. It's like there's less of an electrical charge in the air. It just feels different to be unplugged. And I can sit there with records and, like, look them up. I clean my records. I price each one individually. And I'm just unplugged. And it's great.
That is pretty rad, and I'm glad you do that. That's refreshing. I think more people should find a way to like kind of meditate into something and unplug and to kind of disconnect. I'm revisiting because I think this really translates. At least it does for me. I've always been a big reader, but recently, it's just some years ago, I read like Game of Thrones. And then I was at the book sale at the senior center. We love going there because we'll just take all our books that we've already read, take them there, and then get new books. It's a nice little refresh.
Man, you should have saw me.
My wife's on the Friends of the Library.
They had 3 people help me out with my books last time I went.
It's pretty gnarly. You can find some rad shit. Yeah. Well, one of the things I got was the complete box set of Game of Thrones.
Nice.
Right? So I'm on the 3rd book right now. But for me, it's stuff like that. It reminds me, it's like we're in Game of Thrones right now with, I was going to say less violence, but there's still plenty of violence. But like, I don't know if you've ever read the books or watched the show. I never watched the show, but I think the books are just phenomenal. Like, I can't stop reading. And it's very much like, it's these families. Everybody wants to be king. Everybody wants to kind of rule. And epic battles to try to take the throne. And literally, I feel like we're still in Game of Thrones, except the difference is for the United States, we have a bunch of Master Chiefs, It's like Call of Duty, but it's still the same thing.
Yeah.
And it amazes me today. I'm getting better at articulating what I'm trying to say, and it might sound confusing, as I said it before in this podcast, when I think about territory and war and politics in particular, when they focus on a particular war, like the war in Ukraine right now, or genocides that are happening throughout the world. It shocks me that it's just not taken care of. And I say that as somebody who was in the military. You got a place like, we're so concerned with everything and everybody, right? In politics here in the United States, whether you're on the right or the left, there is a concern. They just might do it differently. They do it differently, but there's a concern for the people, right? When you look at a place like, say, North Korea, for example, it is insane the way those people are living there, right? And we allow that to happen. When a group of some heavily armed, super trained individuals could just go in there. North Korea could be Korea. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, we don't need to deal with that shit. We have all the guns. Like, we could just go there and probably nobody would get hurt. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would be like Game of Thrones. We are sieging the castle. We're coming up over, and who is it? Xi Jinping or whatever. Like, you're gone, and now
Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, see, I'm close enough. Just like that drives me nuts. Okay, and it's just like with Russia, we play this chess game with money and weapons, and it's but we've got this like handshake agreement under the table. We're going to be good because you've got nukes and we got nukes.
Yeah, why is it cool to go all-out war in some places and then just
not others?
Let some places go unchecked?
Because we don't have certain handshakes under the table with some of those places.
Yeah.
Some of them, we're bombing places that have been at war for 20,000 years. Mm-hmm. They've never been able to rebuild. Mm-hmm. It's crazy to me. It's absolutely insane. The fact that I just, in my mind, I'm trying to understand why in 2025 people are still dying that way.
Yeah.
Right? Like in Game of Thrones, everybody's getting just annihilated.
There's still war all over the world.
And we're supposed to be more intellectual, superior
we're
than
advanced.
We were. Yeah. It blows my mind that we have a military for the sole purpose. They'll say for defending, and I get it. Well, we have oceans in Canada. I mean, we're fine. Nobody's coming over here.
Right.
But we are going to take our youth and they're going to catch bullets and they're going to send bullets. And it's like,
yeah,
how is this even possible in 2025?
Whether the United States is the world's police, because we have the power to be. We have the defense spending to be the world's police.
Right.
We could do a lot more, like you said. We could be going into places with Navy SEALs and double tapping world leaders who are doing bad things.
And I'm not saying assassination is the way to go. I'm just saying I think it would be easy.
Right, we could.
You know, I said this was like maybe it was the last podcast I did. I don't remember. But, you know, when I see things like all of a sudden, we're going to take a break today. Like when I watched Biden go to Ukraine, right, at the Capitol or whatever. A lot of the city had already been bombed to shit. But he went there, and Zelensky was right next to him, and they did a press conference. And Putin was like, I'll give a ceasefire today while you're here. You know, what is that? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that was a bad thing. I'm just like, if they're at war,
yeah,
why are you taking a timeout? It just seems fake to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, if they really wanted each other, Ukraine and Russia,
perfect opportunity.
This is the opportunity.
Out the president.
Yeah. But in this Game of Thrones, there's something else at play. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too
honor amongst kings.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good way to put it, dude. Honor amongst kings. I don't know. Maybe I'm just going wildly off track here.
No, not at all.
But that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. Was like, you know, what your thoughts are on some of that stuff. And I don't know if I'm missing anything.
I think to some degree we do have a duty to help make sure the world's a safe place. But whether or not we should just be going into countries, is like, we shouldn't be nation building.
Yeah.
Taking over countries and building their government in the image of the U.S. government.
We're going to make a democracy over here.
Like taking over and maybe, I mean, we have the UN does a lot of that, like humanitarian work. Like, we should definitely be doing humanitarian work, feeding hungry people and vaccines.
So
helping sick people in Africa.
That's a good segue. I agree. But is it selfish to say that we should do that more here? We should do 100% of that here before we go.
Well, we're not taking care of people at home. Yeah.
Right. That's like the biggest thing, I think.
Can we do both?
Oh, I think we're doing a shitty job of both.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You know, when they send aid someplace to a war-torn country, or they're dropping it out of a plane, mm-hmm. I mean, who's really getting it? I mean, they're fighting each other just to get it. Money sometimes, I don't think that helps because it's got to go to somebody.
Yeah.
And then it has to be dispersed. But like here, for example, I mean, that's what people argue about. We're going to send billions of dollars overseas, but we have really
homeless encampments in major cities all over the country. And
you got them here, dude.
Right.
And that's, you didn't see that 10, 15 years ago.
No.
And it's like, okay, so what are we doing? That's why people get upset, mm-hmm. really upset about shit like that. We're going to send all this money overseas, but we're not going to fix the problem here, mm-hmm. which is nuts. And I don't know, I'm not dialed into it that well. You know, I think things like, you know, there's mental disabilities that play a role in it. There's drug addiction that plays a role in it. There's obviously, you know, it doesn't take much to not be able to pay your mortgage and then you're out of your house or mm-hmm. whatever.
And once you're out, it's very hard
to get back in. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to find the answer here sitting at this table, but
I don't think
it's crazy though. I mean, like for me though, I'm that guy who's like, stop fucking sending money overseas until we can fix it here.
Well, yeah, but right now we're trying to cut off food cards for people. Like, we can't be cutting things off. We're cutting things off everywhere. We're turning it all off. So
right.
We're turning the whole thing off. So of course I'm for helping people at home. Yeah. And we should not be turning off people's food cards or making healthcare premiums quadruple or whatever's going on right now, you know.
Yeah, but Black Friday sales are coming up.
Oh.
Yeah, and like big companies are getting worried that nobody's going to spend enough money this year.
Mm-hmm. Shareholders might not get as big a return.
Yeah.
It's something they're very concerned about. No, stock market's doing just fine, better than ever. If you have stocks, you're probably doing all right, but most people don't.
Yeah, or hopefully they're tied to some type of 401k where they work, but that's a pinch. I mean, if you're even given the 3%, you know, the minimum or whatever, 3% is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Per paycheck. Yeah, I think about it all the time, man. Like with my kids, my older two, like by the time you want to move out, you need 7 roommates.
I know. I'm worried about what are my kids going to do. You know, I can barely make it. It took me 9 months to find a job. I was out of work. Luckily, I have my record business. And, you know, I have a degree. I have all kinds I've been working since I was 12 years old. I've done all kinds of stuff, and I couldn't find work. Thankfully, I found a good job. But what are my kids going to do coming out of high school, coming out of college, you know, when I can't even find it with decades of experience?
Yeah. Even with the student loan debt, it was wild to me, the forgiveness of some of that debt. Right when they did that student loan forgiveness, I know some people that got their debts forgiven, which was a great thing for them. During that same time, I took my son to Ferris State University, and they were just hammering the loans on him. Like, you've got loans here to take. You can take these loans. And I'm like, what are we doing? That didn't make sense to me. I mean, obviously, college isn't free. But
at one time it was.
When you had a group of people that got, so that's why people got upset. Like, well, my student loans didn't get expunged or whatever. Theirs did. And then the new crop of students coming in all have to take loans.
Somebody else is getting something they're not. Yeah.
Yeah. It's nuts to me, dude. It's absolutely nuts. Oh, so like, and I could be getting this wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's right. I just took my daughter to Ferris to do a tour of the campus. She's going to go there next year, and she's going for graphic design. And years ago, Ferris State University and Kendall College, they merged, but it was more of like a kind of just like a partnership. They didn't transfer any of the programs. So we go to Ferris to do the tour, and the first 5 minutes of the speech, getting into it, was this partnership with Kendall College. I had already taken my son there 2 years prior, and this discussion never came up. And one of the first things the gal said was, we moved our design school to Kendall.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, it's about $25,000 a year if you consider housing and you consider food and everything. But the actual tuition to go to Ferris is like $15,000 some dollars. The tuition to go to Kendall for that program that was offered at Ferris is close to $40,000.
No.
And there's no housing. You know, it's like, you got to move to downtown Grand Rapids. And I'm like, all right, well, she's minoring in business. So I said, well, let's take a look at the design program at Ferris. It's not graphic design. You're not going to an art school. But, you know, it's got more of a business. It's more of a business design degree. And so that's what she's doing. Because I'm like, hey, I'll help you as much as I can, but you can't almost triple the tuition.
That's crazy.
To go to Kendall. And you don't have a place to stay.
Yeah.
And there isn't like a food program.
And
like
you're paying $1,500 a month for an apartment on top of it.
Downtown Grand Rapids?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
You'd have to probably try to find a place in like Comstock Park or something like that.
Yeah, find some house to share with somebody, with 4 people.
and no shade, but like some of these, you know, you go to an art school, like, I mean, you really gotta, I mean, that has to be like the passion. And because they recoup that cash, that to pay those loans off. You know, it's scary, man. Like, I just read an article about how we're losing doctors.
Yeah.
You know, because of the cost. It's like people don't want to take on that burden.
College, yeah, especially medical school.
Years ago, when I was selling cars, we had a gal come in. Her base salary, she was a doctor, fresh out of med school, maybe 8 months or whatever. And her salary, I mean, she was making close to like $350,000, right? So when I say years ago, I mean, this is probably 15 years ago. I mean, that is a great income.
Yeah.
Right? And she was driving this old piece of shit car. Just, it was like the car that she drove, get her through college, all this stuff. Couldn't give her a loan because her student loan debt was insane, bro.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, she ended up buying like a cheaper used car, better than what she was driving.
You have to pay cash.
I mean, you can't make it $300,000 a year, and your student loan debt's keeping you from. So that would mean she's not going to be able to get a mortgage. You know, wild.
Mm-hmm.
And we need doctors.
A little bit.
You know what I mean? And the fact that everything's specialized now, and yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. I still don't know if I'm going to go on a statin, though.
I can't help you with that one.
I think we're getting in the weeds. But listen, man, I really appreciate you coming on. This has been a very thoughtful conversation.
Thank you for having me.
It's expanded my mind a little bit.
Good.
And I am going to read Epicurus. I'm sure that Google will fix that spelling for me, and I'll find it. So maybe I'll be more of a philosopher than a stoic.
Nice.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, everybody.